A queen spent 40 years as a prisoner. This is the story of Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of history's most powerful women, whose life became a gilded cage of betrayal and secrets. By the end, you will understand the true cost of defiance in a world ruled by kings. We will uncover why a monarch would lock away his own wife for decades and how her silent presence shaped the fate of nations. What does it mean to be powerful, yet completely powerless? She was not born to be a prisoner. Eleanor of Aquitaine entered the world with a destiny of power, inheriting vast, wealthy lands in southern France while still a young woman. This made her the most desirable bride in all of Europe, a duchess in her own right whose territory was richer than the domain of the French king himself. Her first marriage was to King Louis VII of France, a union that should have cemented her influence. But Eleanor was a woman of fiery intellect and bold ambition, traits that did not suit the pious and reserved court in Paris. The marriage crumbled, annulled on grounds of consanguinity, a polite term for being too closely related, but the real reason was a fundamental mismatch of spirit. Eleanor was a force of nature that the quiet Louis could not hope to contain. Her story, however, was far from over. With her freedom and her lands restored to her, she made a stunning political and personal choice. Just weeks after her annulment, she married Henry Plantagenet, the dynamic and ambitious Duke of Normandy, who would soon become King Henry II of England. This union created an empire, stretching from the Scottish border all the way to the Pyrenees. Together, they were the ultimate power couple of the 12th century, brilliant, energetic, and ruthless. Eleanor bore Henry many children, including 5 sons, and here is where the seeds of their future destruction were sown. A queen of her stature expected to wield influence, especially through her sons. She began to champion their rights to territories and power, seeing them as extensions of her own authority and legacy. But King Henry was a man who brooked no rival, not even from his own blood. He refused to grant their sons any real autonomy, keeping them on a tight leash and treating them as pawns in his own grand designs. Eleanor's fierce maternal instincts and her own thirst for political control collided violently with her husband's iron will. The very ambition that had drawn them together now became the wedge that would drive them apart, setting the stage for a family conflict that would shake the foundations of their vast empire. The simmering tension within the Plantagenet family finally erupted into open war. When their eldest son, young Henry, demanded real power and was refused by their father, Eleanor did not stand by her husband. Instead, she threw her immense influence and the resources of her beloved Aquitaine behind her son's rebellion. This was the Great Revolt, a civil war that pitted father against sons and wife against husband. Eleanor was the master strategist, forging alliances with old enemies like the King of France and powerful English barons who chafed under Henry II's strong rule. For a brief, terrifying moment, it seemed the Angevin Empire might shatter from within, but King Henry was a brilliant military commander. He moved with shocking speed and brutality, crushing the rebel armies one by one. The rebellion collapsed and the king's vengeance was swift and absolute. He pursued his fleeing wife, catching her as she attempted to reach the safety of her own lands, disguised as a man. The capture was not just a military defeat, it was a deeply personal humiliation. In Henry's eyes, Eleanor had committed the ultimate treason. She was not merely a disloyal subject, she was a wife who had turned his own children against him, betraying the very heart of their family and their kingdom. Execution was a real possibility for such a crime, but Henry chose a different, more calculated punishment. He would make her a permanent example. He ordered her taken to England, not as a queen, but as his prisoner. Her gilded cage awaited, a sentence with no defined end, designed to erase her power while keeping her alive as a stark warning to anyone who would ever dare challenge the king again. Eleanor's new life was one of immense contradiction. She was still the Queen of England, a title of immense prestige, yet she lived as a high-value prisoner. Her first prison was Old Sarum, a desolate hilltop fortress where the winds howled constantly. She was not thrown into a dank dungeon, but neither was she free. Her accommodations were comfortable apartments befitting her rank, yet they were still rooms with locked doors and guarded corridors. She was allowed a small household of loyal servants to attend to her needs, a flicker of her former court, but every one of them was chosen and monitored by the king's men. Her world, which had once spanned continents, shrank to the stone walls of a few chambers. The greatest punishment was not physical discomfort, but the psychological isolation. All her letters were read, her visitors screened. She was cut off from the political machinations she had once mastered, and, most painfully, from her own children. For 16 long years, she was a spectator to her own life, hearing only echoes of the world outside. She would have known of her sons growing up, of court intrigues, of wars and treaties, all unfolding without her influence. Imagine the torment for a woman of such formidable will, to be so close to power yet utterly powerless, her authority reduced to the management of her tiny, watched household. This was the essence of her gilded cage. Every tapestry on the wall, every comfortable chair, was a reminder of the glory she had lost, a life of action traded for one of silent observation. Her imprisonment was a masterstroke of psychological control, proving that a cage can be built from courtesy and velvet as effectively as from iron and stone. Her absence became a powerful presence in the politics of the realm. Henry II now held the ultimate card, for by controlling Eleanor, he also controlled Aquitaine. Her vast and wealthy lands were the cornerstone of his continental empire, and with their duchess securely locked away, he could administer her territories without her interference, presenting a unified and unbreakable front to his enemies. This was the true genius of his punishment, a move that consolidated his power for over a decade and a half, yet the king's victory created a deep and lasting wound within his own family. For Eleanor's sons, their mother's imprisonment was a constant, unspoken reality. They grew to manhood knowing their father had captured and silenced the woman who had once championed their cause so fiercely. This bred a simmering resentment, especially in her favorite son, Richard. His loyalty was always divided, fiercely devoted to his mother and the lands of Aquitaine she had gifted him, while being forced to serve a father who held her captive. Richard the Lionheart's entire political identity was shaped in the shadow of his mother's cage. He became the Duke of Aquitaine, but he ruled knowing his true partner in power was imprisoned hundreds of miles away. This dynamic created an unbridgeable chasm between the king and his heir, a cold war of the heart that would define the future of the crown. Even from her remote castles, Eleanor was never truly gone. She was the ghost at every feast, the silent partner in every negotiation, a living reminder of the price of defiance. Her captivity was not an end to her influence, but a transformation of it, from an active force to a powerful symbol that shaped the ambitions and betrayals of the next generation. The 40-year imprisonment of Eleanor of Aquitaine is a story of power, defiance, and a will that could not be broken by stone walls. It is a profound lesson in the brutal realities of medieval politics, where a queen's ambition could be her greatest asset and her most dangerous crime. Her story forces us to confront the harsh limitations placed on even the most powerful women of her era, whose authority was always conditional on the will of the men around them. The price of her defiance was not a swift execution, but a slow, deliberate erasure from the world she had helped to build, and so we are left with a haunting final question. When her captor, King Henry II, finally died and her beloved son, Richard the Lionheart, ascended the throne, ordering her immediate release, was she truly free? After 16 years in confinement, the woman who emerged was older, wiser, and undoubtedly changed. The fiery duchess who had led armies and challenged kings was gone, replaced by a seasoned political operator who would go on to rule England with immense skill as Richard's regent while he fought in the Crusades. But had the cage, even after the door was opened, simply become a part of her? Was her freedom a return to her old self, or the beginning of a new, more cautious chapter written by the long years of silence and surveillance? Her legacy is a testament to resilience, but it is also a permanent mark of the cost. What do you think? Was Eleanor's release a true liberation, or had the queen she once was lost forever within those castle walls? Share your thoughts on this historical mystery in the comments below, and if you found this deep dive into a forgotten life fascinating, subscribe for more journeys into the secrets of the past.